sway bar didn't work, and I actually called QA1 2 weeks ago to ask them about a rear shock. We just had a question on what spacers and spacing we would use for the rear shock, because it's a universal shock, so there's like Chevy notes and Ford notes and nothing for Dodge. So anyway, long story short, while I was talking to them, I'm like, hey, I keep reading that your sway bar doesn't work on a stock big block K member, and the guy's like, oh yeah, he's a tech at QA1. He's like, oh yeah, this one will work. I'm like, okay, give me the part number, you know, because I don't want any confusion. Gives me the part number. I ordered it from, you know, Schmummit, and it's not right. You could probably see me a little bit in that video going, wait a minute, I put the brackets up for, you know, the ones that are perpendicular to the frame. Doesn't work. K-frame has a bow, a curve to it, I guess you could say, and the instructions say basically you can only use the QA1 K-frame, which I don't want to use, not for this car anyway. I'm sure it's nice and great and everything, but I'm taking liberties, but I didn't want to take it that far. So anyway, that is my rant about the aftermarket for today. I did have to take this header off here on the passenger side. It was contacting the torsion bar, which a lot of them do. So I just put a little heat on that and beat on it a little bit. And luckily there's no ceramic coating on them yet, because that would have sucked. So I guess TTI steered me correctly and said, hey, you know, they basically said if you have them ceramic coated with us and you do a startup on it, it'll discolor the primaries. I'm like, well, I don't want that. He's like, well, just do your startup and then have them Cerakoted, and then they'll be fine. So so I'm kind of glad that happened. Or I'm not glad that I have to take these off again, because it really, really sucks. But I wanted to point something out with headers. Now, again, this is basic stuff. Not everybody knows, so I'm gonna say it. So when you're tightening headers, I have all the bolts in, and it's always a good idea if you put the outside bolts, so the very end flange here and the very end flange here, just to get them installed with the gasket. So once you do that, you can put the other bolts in once the gasket's in there, and leave everything loose and until you have all of them in. For instance, this primary for the number 2 cylinder is actually laying across the access to the second bolt here, so I have to actually have this guy loose almost all the way out so I can put that bolt in, and then it's really tough to tighten from there. But everything else can just go in on its own, but it's a real struggle over here on this side for some reason. But you know, they're 2-inch primaries, that kind of compounds the issue. But when you go to tighten these, you want to tighten from the center out, just like an intake manifold or a head, something with a flat plane surface. I mean, these things have 3/8 thick flanges on them. You're probably not going to warp them, but it's just good practice just to start in the middle, do the first 2 bolts in the center, and then do this guy and this guy, and then check the center ones again, and then check these 2, and then do the outside ones. That's the way I do it. Maybe it's wrong, but I've never had a warped header flange, and I don't want you to either. So take it for what it's worth. Not much, but that's my fun fact and tip for the day. So now, after I tighten these bolts, I'm gonna get back on the accessories. I do have a sanding compressor coming, so I'm gonna work on spacing this guy out correctly and getting it, you know, straight and in line with the other pulleys, and we'll go from there. All right, so I got the headers tightened on this side and the other side. They were already tight, but I should have put the plugs in before the headers. Note to future me, that sucks. But I have a trick. This is just a piece of 3/8 fuel line, and no, I didn't invent this trick. I saw it on one of my favorite shows, and anybody could use it. One of these pieces of 3/8 hose fits nicely snug on the end and helps you thread that sucker in. So these are angled plugs in the heads, as you can see them down there. They're at an angle for reasons because of the primaries. Basically, I think the idea behind it was to keep plug wires from burning. So let's see if I can get this one in without too many profane words. Let's see, get you guys set up here. Hardest part, man, is the camera angles. Okay. I can't even see it. But low. I need to shorten this bit. I'm back. Had to cut that hose down a little. And I put some anti-seize on these plugs, just a little dab on the threads, just because the plugs themselves are steel and the heads are aluminum, and they will resist each other with corrosion over time. And you don't want that. Yeah, I can't even see. It's so frustrating. Remind myself where these are. Below the hand. There it is. Right there. Yes, sir. Basically, it just lets you spin it all the way down to the crush washer. And you can remove it just like that. I've got a short one now and a medium-sized one. Let's see how far I can get. Get you guys set up here. Trouble. You guys can see this, but just that much on there. You don't have to go around the whole thing, just that'll spread just fine inside there. These are NGK R BKR6E-N. It's a plug I've not used before. I usually use the 3924 plug in my other big block. Yeah, my vintage air shipped out Monday, so I should have my compressor here in the next few days, which would be nice to wrap up these accessories. Seems like it's been taking forever. but that's the way it goes. You. His heads are huge. Where are you? Right under the primary. Need my shorter hose. Yeah, this will come in handy, these little guys, on any kind of car. I need to get a Mopar pre-lubing shaft tool to pre-lube this engine before we start it, which will require pulling the distributor out, pulling the mid shaft out. There's an intermediate shaft down inside here. I'll show you right there. You can see it. There's a shaft and a gear, and they are basically the mid shaft between the distributor, and on Mopars they have just a flat tang, like basically if you picture like a standard screwdriver at the end of it instead of a gear like Chevy and Ford stuff, because the gear is actually driven off the crank, off the cam on the intermediate shaft, which in turn drives the oil pump and the distributor up top here. So basically I got to pop that out and then stick the priming tool in there, roll the engine over a few times just to make sure, and then verify oil has actually made it up to the valve train on at least one side of the engine. Because if you were just to pre-lube it here, it would only, so as the cam rotates, or I'm sorry, the crank rotates, it is actually fed with oil to the bearings, and so it won't pump through the push rods or through all of them unless you roll the engine over several times so the holes will meet up. So hopefully that makes sense to you guys. I guess I'll just leave that out for now because I'm going to pop the distributor in as soon as I bring it up on top dead center. So, but first I have to tighten the spark plugs. Yay! Grab an extension. I guess I shouldn't have put the spark plugs in before the headers, because that would have just made them even more difficult to get in here. So I think I did it right, because this isn't too bad. As I said that, I thought my ratchet was stuck. Socket on first. This one might require a wrench instead of this ratchet. You guys might not have seen this before, but these spark plug sockets have a hex head on them for that. The spark plugs are always hard to get to. just like all screwdrivers should have a hex head at the base of each one. How many of us have needed that? I know I have. Just enough to crush the washer. Really anti-sneeze. Resituate the camera here. Still here. O-ring on my distributor was dry, so I wanted to put a light coat of grease around that, just have a nice seal. It's sealing up against pretty rough cast iron inside that hole. So my rotor, see where I marked my rotor right there. So that's where the rotor's going to sit. Well, that's where how I took it out. And then I marked my distributor housing where it goes. And the truth is, these guys can only be put in two different ways. So basically this way or 180 out. And the fun part is I really don't need to put it in correctly right now because I'm not going to be firing the engine yet. But so I have to pre-lube it, obviously, as I originally stated a few minutes ago. But basically I want to seal this thing up so there's no dirt getting inside of it. Stock distributor housing may have less meat on that. I'm pretty sure this is the stock bolt too. I don't want to crank on it anymore. Alright, good enough for now. Driver's side is even. Passenger side is odd. Figure out a coil bracket too. I mean, I have the bracket, I gotta figure out where to mount it where it doesn't look silly. It'll either be front and center or hidden. I don't have really any provisions to put them here. They're supposed to be like right dead center here. Grab the funnels. Change these boots. They are straight. And let me see if it works on the driver's side first. One. Just nothing is what it seems. Even the simplest tasks with car building seem to just drag on and on. And as long as you know that going in, you won't be disappointed when that shiny new sway bar shows up and it's wrong. and people that made it said it would work. It's kind of a bummer, but it is what it is, I guess. I should have called this channel "It Is What It Is," because I end up saying that a lot. But yeah, I'm not happy about the dipstick either. That just literally shed all of its paint the second I put it in. Too shabby. Let's go down that. That'll be better. That'll work. So the straight boots work over here on this side pretty good. Oh man. It seems kind of redundant to mark my wires, but it just makes them go back on a lot quicker. I'll have to like trace it back to the cap and figure out the right one. Yeah, I might. Yeah, that might have to be a 90. Yeah, especially the 2. Number 2 is going to be 90 also, I think. Yeah. Yep. That won't even go on right. No. See what I mean? Like, putting something as simple as spark plug wires. Yeah, I guess if I was going to run it today, I could still run it, but it's just so frustrating. But don't let anybody tell you this stuff just falls together. It does not, as you've seen. So now I'm going to make this guy shorter to give us a better angle this way. See how this one's out of whack? The best. There we go. Angle. It's kind of hard to see, but basically this spacer is just too long. So let me pop it off. Morning. Back at it. I'm getting these spacers cut and dressed up so I can put a done symbol on this accessory drive. Should add this one. It's a 1/4 inch long 3/8 bolt. Hopefully gonna work. Really can't tell until it's in place. See how the brackets are aligning together. Pretty good. still a little weary about this power steering pulley. As you saw in the last video, it's got way more run out than it should. But maybe that's normal. I don't know. Maybe someone sat on it. Who knows? Kind of sucks though, because this stuff isn't cheap. Make this little guy a little smaller, so I'm still pitched slightly. By going off this bracket here and then comparing it to the water pump pulley, as you can see what I'm looking at here. See how the reveal on the pulley is uneven? Well, that's not going to be good for belts. That's going to put more friction on one side of the belt than the other, so I already think I'm up against it with this hokey mount. So I'm gonna take a little off this guy and we'll see where that leaves me. Alright, I'm back. Dress this one up. Somebody did I think this was on the engine when we got it, but that is not flat, so we'll dress that up. So, as you can see, our steering bracket, it might be kind of hard to see on the camera, but it's wonky at best. From my perspective, it looks like this guy, this bracket here, is closer to the head than it over here. So, two options are grind this down, which won't look right, or remove some material from this part of that water pump ear right there, or shim these fasteners, shim this fastener with a washer and this fastener, I don't know if you can see that, there you go, with a washer. That's super annoying, but sometimes you just have to. So I think I'm going to try a washer here. Yeah, I'm gonna give a washer a try here and see what that does for us. And once I'm done with all this shimming, I'll take it all apart again and I'll blast all the fasteners that aren't black and washers and spacers and whatnot, and then I'll paint them up and it'll be like really nice looking. So just that little extra time, man, goes so far. In my eyes, it's worth it. So alright guys, well, one last update here. So the compressor is mounted it's fixed, so there's no adjustment on it, so we believe that's where it's going to be. We're still messing with the alternator. There's a couple ways to mount this alternator. Neither have worked for us yet, but we're learning as we go again, and you know, it is what it is. Stuff just is all normal. Everyone goes through this unless you buy some sort of serpentine kit that costs $3,000. Most likely this is what you have to run into, and that's okay. So we'll work it out. And then of course all this stuff has to be blown apart and powder coated and cleaned and nicely painted and whatnot. So going for that factory look. Obviously it's not, because of that. It's terrible and hideous looking, but it'll be nice. So you know how we do it. But anyway, that'll be it for this week. And our little channel is growing. Slow, but it's growing, and we're working our butts off here. We want to make sure we get a video out minimum once a week. And you'll see that we posted a video this week for my grandson. He's 2 and wanted to see an oil change, and his mom took him to Jiffy Lube to get her car oil change, and they wouldn't let him out to look at it, like, at all. So I'm like, I'll do an oil change for him. My truck did the first oil change on it for him, and he loved it. He's watched it like 5 times. So I know you guys aren't into that sort of thing, and it's fine. It was just for him. But anyway, thanks for watching. We really appreciate your support, and so many kind comments have come over, and a lot of really supportive people out there. And anyway, but tell a friend if you know anybody who's into this kind of thing. We build cars, and this isn't going to be the last one. This is one of very many to come. So we'll see you next week. Thanks guys, take care.